Welcome to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Menti. We are outside the headquarters in Trenton of the New Jersey Education Association. We're going in for an interview with the Vice President in a minute. Also this week, the ashes of former Governor Brendan Byrne are taken to their final resting place, and you won't believe where he chose. Also, an important new treatment in the fight against Parkinson's disease. And we'll introduce you to the New Jersey Teacher of the Year, who is up for the National Teacher of the Year. But first, our interview with Sean Spiller, the Vice President of the New Jersey Education Association. A lot to talk to him about. A teacher strike just ended in Jersey City. We'll talk about the ramifications for the state. More money in Governor Murphy's budget for schools, but we begin with school safety and the possibility of teachers carrying guns. One of the topics that's top of mind, not only in New Jersey but across the country, is school safety, and there's several proposals floating out there. Let's start with the question, though, how safe do you believe New Jersey schools are?
Overall, I think pretty safe. I think we've done a lot over the last number of years in terms of preparing students, preparing staff, in terms of hardening the locations, if you will, allowing access only to parents or others who should be there. So I think overall, parents should feel comfortable in the sense that our schools, I think, are relatively safe.
And could you do a better job?
Always. I think as an educator, you're always going to hear an answer from me. If you ask, could it be better? The answer is yes. You're always trying to find ways to make it safer.
What could be better?
I think any one of those things I just cited in terms of making sure the buildings themselves have what they need to make sure that only the right people are getting in. We've got some districts that don't have the resources to really make sure they've got the proper door locks and proper security procedures in place. So some of that has to improve probably.
You're a teacher, you're a high school teacher, you teach science. Would you like to be armed?
No, not at all. I mean, that, to me, that's just, it's a ridiculous idea in this sense. I know that as an educator, when kids come into my environment, you want to have a very safe feeling, a very comfortable feel, someplace where the kids want to approach you and be able to share with you. And when you introduce guns, weapons into that environment, into that setting, I think it changes the dynamic.
Well, there's some states that are all for this, and I know it's probably going to be a state-by-state issue and not a federal issue. If there was a teacher that, let's say, was former law enforcement or served in the armed forces and was proficient with a gun, should that person be allowed to have a gun?
I see a lot of problems with it. I think that, for example, when we have our drills or something else, we have a lockdown drill. We're supposed to lock our doors, go to a safe location in the classroom. I can only imagine that, God forbid, something were really happening. When we have our law enforcement officers come in, people from the sheriff's department, different from our local police, different from all the different entities that show up, how are they going to determine who the shooter is, who the armed teacher is, who's the person they're encountering in the hallway with a weapon? Are they a good person or a bad person? And I just worry about that because the more bullets that are flying, the more chance that our kids are going to get hit or other colleagues are going to get hit.
You recently had a walkout at some of the schools. And before the walkout, I talked to several educators, principals, teachers. They hated the idea.
Yeah.
They said that it's just unsafe.
Add me to the list. I hate the idea.
You hate the idea too?
Yeah, I hate the idea.
And I just listened to the 60 Minutes interview with some of the Parkland teenagers that helped to organize this. They said they want to call for more walkouts, that they'll keep doing walkouts until they get action. Hate the idea of guns,
or are you talking about hate the idea of the walkouts?
They hate the idea of the walkouts.
Oh, I apologize. I hate the idea of guns.
Okay, you hate the idea of guns. You like the walkouts.
Yeah, I think students standing up and speaking out, I think we've seen that over the course of history in this nation on a lot of issues at the time that were not that popular in many instances. But I think, look, when kids figure out a way to express themselves, and I think an important piece to that as an educator is, okay, you're walking out, but what is it you're hoping to accomplish? How are you going to highlight the issue? What do you hope the follow-up is? Where do you go next? I think those are all part of a teachable moment. So walking out just to walk out, but I think I see a lot more in what these kids are doing. They're walking out for a purpose.
I don't think any of the pushback on the walkouts, especially to the educators I spoke with, had anything to do with the reason for the walkout. I think they agreed that the students should have a voice. They were worried about the publicity that the students are walking out in mass on a certain time in this atmosphere, and that they could be a target. That's what they're concerned.
Oh, sure.
There are safety concerns. That's all. That's
fair.
They wanted another way of doing it.
Fair point. I think that I know personally and I know organizationally, we would absolutely be concerned as well in terms of when these kids are walking out. I think the challenge around it is when the kids have decided they're doing something. It's difficult to, it's if you've been in these buildings, you can't just say no and all the kids just listen and don't do it. So I think as an educator and I think as administrators, how do you try and help them do it in as safe a way as possible? How do you try and maybe manage that in a way that allows them to express themselves and they feel comfortable that they are doing something and are participating, but you're doing it in as structured a way as possible that you can kind of still make sure they're safe?
Okay. The governor recently had a budget address.
Sure.
And said he was going to give $283 million in increased funding for schools. Yeah. You must have been happy to hear
Absolutely.
that.
Thrilled.
This governor is doing just about everything the NJEA wants?
Well, I'd say he's off to a great start in the sense of he's doing what we need for our kids. So for the last 8 years, we've had our schools that have been underfunded, not having the resources that we need to properly educate our students. So what he's done so far is absolutely steps in the right direction.
It's been pointed out by several people that $283 million is great. It's still not the funding you've had in the past, and until they fix the school funding formula, it really doesn't matter that much. It's good to have extra money, but you're not fixing the problem. Is that fair?
Well, I think you're working towards it. I think his plan is to phase up over 4 years, and he's in year 1 of that phase up. And I think as you work towards that, it's very difficult to expect anyone coming in, a governor coming in, to go from 0 to 60 in 1 year. I think right now he's got to figure out a way. He's got a lot of pressing issues, a lot of issues that require funding support, and this is one of them, one of the priorities. But he's working his way to make sure that we do get to that funding formula.
I'll get back to the governor in 1 second because you've agreed to stick around for a second
Sure.
segment, and thanks so much for doing that. But I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the New Jersey teachers' strike that was just resolved. There's not a lot of details out about the resolution. Can you fill us in on what I'm sure there was a compromise.
I don't know all the details as well. I apologize on that one, but we haven't heard them all either. But I will say this, and I know I was there with a lot of our members on Friday when they were out, and they were demanding, respect, really, respect for what we do. I think a lot of times we as educators hear from so many people, it's the most important job in the world, we thank you for doing it. And right now under Chapter 78, those same educators, all of us, they're making less every year to do it. And we know that's unsustainable. So they were out to say, look, this is unsustainable in terms of our healthcare costs. We can't keep making less every year. We've got to support our families, and the fact that they've settled and have some tentative agreement means, to your point, both sides did come together, figure it out, and figure out a way that works for everyone.
Chapter 78 is a 2011 law that had some mandates on how much teachers had to contribute to their pension fund and to their health care.
Yes.
And your organization has been fighting against Chapter 78 since then. The Jersey City strike was all about Chapter 78.
All about Chapter 78.
People were looking at that strike specifically in hoping that it would be a linchpin for reform around the state when it comes to Chapter 78. Is it? Do you know?
Early to say, but I hope so. I hope so. I think that when you see opportunities, and I think that's what this is, when you see the opportunity where educators have now shown the way for others in terms of how you get that done and how you maybe push forward and demand that respect, and also the opportunity with the governor, where you have a governor supporting our schools with more resources, when you relieve some of that stress and that tension. Districts, they all want to do the right thing. Board of Eds, they want to do the right thing, but they've been pressed for the last number of years with less and less funding, and of course, the desire to accrue more and more wealth through Chapter 78. So now there's finally a little bit of a balance where you've got a little bit more dollars coming in from a new governor, and also you've got the educators who are saying this can't continue, and now there's maybe a way to find.
Chapter 78 can be reformed. It can be changed.
Yes, it can.
Are you pushing for that with this governor?
Absolutely.
And has he been receptive?
He has, in terms of he understands how bad this is. He understands what this means. We right now have some of the best schools in the nation, 1, 2, or 3 by any measure, and we're not the best in the nation by accident. We're the best in the nation because we get quality people and we support them and we support our schools. We've got to make sure we don't lose that, and he understands how important that is.
We'll continue our conversation with Sean Spiller, the Vice President of the New Jersey Education Association, when Jersey Matters continues right after this.